The movie opens in an odd secluded town of Thailand. A film crew embarks on an intriguing journey to document the mysterious lifestyle of Nim, a local witch healer. Nim is perceived as the chosen vessel for the spirit of Bayan, a local god which the townfolks worship. However, the spirit of Bayan had initially expressed interest in claiming her eldest sister, Noi, but was promptly rejected. Fulfilling her obligations as the human conduit for the Bayan god, Nim devotes her life to the various spiritual needs of the community, providing healings and blessings. As the film crew follows Nim, they venture to Noi's place, a house masked in sorrow following the recent deaths of Noi's husband. Now Noi lives with her only surviving nuclear family, her daughter Mink. After the sea of mourners gradually retreats, leaving behind a small cluster of relatives and friends, an unexpected surge of aggression engulfs Mink. She verbally assaults a man, hurling provocative words that fill the room with an uncomfortable tension. Although the outburst is quickly subdued, Nim can't shake off her lingering suspicions about the roots of Mink's rage. A potential spirit influence, or simply the effect of liquor. Later that night, Nim encounters a weird sight, Mink rooted to the spot, staring intently at their elderly, visually impaired neighbor. Minutes later, the old woman retreats and Mink finally surrenders to the call of sleep. The morning brings the rough spectacle of people carrying away the lifeless body of the old blind woman. An unsolved mystery hangs heavy in the air, the cause of her demise unknown. Soon after, Mink subtly leaves the place. Noticing this, Nim follows her, only to find her oddly positioned in front of the house's back door, ignoring Nim's repeating calls. The strange circumstances fuel Nim's apprehensions about Mink possibly being in the clutches of an evil spirit. In the aftermath of the funeral, Nim takes it upon herself to investigate Mink's quarters, hoping to find evidence to support her growing suspicion about Mink's recent weird behavior. Within the confines of her closet, Nim stumbles upon an unusual object believed to possess the power to repel spirits. No sooner does Nim make her discovery than Mink bursts into the room, ushering them out with a surprising display of aggressiveness. Grappling with her newfound evidence, Nim inquires her sister about Mink's recent experiences. Any strange dreams, weird symptoms, anything that could signify the onset of an evil possession. However, Noi's silence acts as a towering wall, hindering Nim's attempts at understanding the situation and leaving her stranded in curiosity and mystery. The following night, the documentary crew finds themselves absorbed in conversation with one of Mink's friends at a local bar. The friend expresses concerns over the video evidence to substantiate her claims. The footage shows a trip to the mall where Mink's acts mimic those of a child. The conversation concludes with Mink leaving the bar. Following Mink's departure, the cameraman follows her, capturing her journey to her workplace where she sleeps on a bench. The subsequent morning brings a weird discovery for Mink's coworkers. An exhausted Mink sleeping in the office, roused from her dreams by a colleague. Mink's morning is filled with horror as she finds herself in the midst of an uncomfortable bleeding episode. She rushes away and heads home. Returning home, she encounters a river of questions from her worried mother. Mink, however, locks herself away, her room serving as a defense against further interrogation. In light of Mink's concerning behavior, Noi seeks counsel from Mainit later that day. His analysis of Mink's symptoms draws parallel with Nim's experiences while coming to terms with the spirit within her. His recommendation? Let Nim perform the acceptance ritual, essentially inviting the spirit to become a part of Mink's life. This suggestion, however, does not fit well with Noi, who is strongly against the prospect of her daughter being possessed. The day that follows sees Noi accompanying Mink to the hospital, in the hope of finding relief for her intense pain. The medical professionals, however, are confused and unable to pinpoint a cause. Their failure indirectly boosts the argument of a sinister spiritual influence at play. Mink returns to work the next day attempting to maintain her normal life. However, her attempts are crushed by a sudden wave of nausea coupled with her relentless pain. Despite her excruciating pain, Mink continues her efforts to work, only to face another blow. Summoned to her boss's office, she is casually fired. Fueled by her mounting frustration, she hastily packs her belongings and storms out. In the subsequent hours, Mink readies herself for a parade taking place that night. As an artist prepares to style her hair, a chilling transformation takes hold of Mink. She stares into the mirror, harshly biting her nails until her teeth are painted with the reddish hue of her blood. The artist's interruption breaks Mink's trance and she is horrified at the sight of her bloodied hands. The day's events continue as a lively parade fills the streets. Amid the festivities, Mink undergoes yet another transformation, throwing decorative elements at the unsuspecting crowd. Unfazed by the fact that she's fired the previous day, Mink returns to her place of employment the next day, operating under the delusion of still being employed. Upon spotting her, the boss promptly calls the security team, instructing them to remove Mink from the premises. As Mink is escorted out, the reason behind her abrupt termination is revealed. CCTV footage displaying Mink's inappropriate actions within the office. As the night rolls in, Noi stumbles upon a harrowing sight. Mink is found in the bathroom, lying on the floor, unconscious and bathed in her own blood, a chilling consequence of her self-inflicted wrist wounds. Driven by desperation and the seemingly unendurable weight of her torment, Mink had attempted to extinguish her own life. Reacting swiftly, Noi and Manit managed to get Mink to the hospital in the nick of time. Soon after, Nim pays a visit to her hospital-bound niece, where she breaks unsettling news to Noi. Mink's possession is not the work of the Bayan god, but of an evil spirit. Furthermore, the acceptance ceremony would prove fruitless in the case, even if they want to do it now. Following the hospital visit, Nim returns home with Manit and they venture into the room of Mink's deceased brother Mac. There, Nim uncovers a shocking revelation. Mink and Mac have been involved in a sexual relationship, which ultimately led Mac to take his own life. Compelled by her findings, Nim retreats to the forest where Mac had hanged himself. Nim postulates it's the restless spirit of Mac that's tormenting Mink. She spends the following days and nights imploring Mac's spirit at the base of the tree, pleading for him to cease his destructive pursuit. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Nim, Noi and Manit, still grappling with Mink's situation, go against Nim's advice and decide to enlist the services of a shaman for the acceptance ceremony. In their minds, the Bayan god might be punishing Mink for resisting the path of becoming a witch healer. As the ceremony is to commence, Manit secretly informs Nim of their decision. She hastily arrives at the scene, disrupting the ceremony midway as it's a strong violation of their cultural taboos. In the ensuing commotion, Mink seizes the camera from a crew member and savagely attacks Noi, beating her into unconsciousness. Nim intervenes, managing to restrain Mink, but not for long. Suddenly, Mink runs off, vanishing before Nim's eyes, leaving no trace of her whereabouts. As Mink mysteriously vanishes, her family and friends instantly initiate a frantic search. Hours melt away without a trace of her, leaving everyone on edge. Meanwhile, Nim retreats back to the forest, engaging in a ritualistic plea to Mink's dead brother's spirit, begging to spare Mink from further torment. Day and night blend together as Nim relentlessly prays, hoping to find Mink's location with a divine power. Simultaneously, Noi and her brother Manit, desperate for answers, turn to the police, offering a new lead on Mink's whereabouts. A taxi driver shares footage from his dashcam that shows Mink as a passenger. The video reveals Mink leaving the vehicle in the midst of a barren field. Despite the driver's calls, she continues a walk further into the field, in a chilling twist as the driver turns his vehicle to leave. Mink abruptly appears ahead of him. This puzzling event remains the only clue to Mink's disappearance, and the police promise to keep them updated. However, loads of days pass without any news. The police remain clueless, and Nim's spiritual efforts yield no answers. One day, while engaging in a ritual, Nim encounters a mysterious incident. A black liquid oozes from an egg as she cracks it open. This occurrence leads Nim to a profound realization: Mac isn't responsible for the harrowing events. Driven by this insight, she visits the field where Mink was last seen by the taxi driver. Venturing through the grasses, she discovers an eerie abandoned building standing solitary in the field. Nim navigates the deserted structure, scrutinizing every corner of every floor until she finally discovers Mink on the 5th level, unconscious and dirt-covered. Nim rushes her to the hospital, where thankfully the doctors assure them that Mink is stable. The following day, Nim ascends a nearby mountain to make a sacrifice. Upon arrival, she's horrified to discover that someone has decapitated the statue of Bayan. In the meantime, Mink is now discharged from the hospital. During a visit, Nim witnesses a disturbing shift in Mink's manner as she morphs into a savage state. In an unsettling spectacle, Mink sheds her clothing, becoming sexually aggressive and making advances towards Manit. Nim and Noi spring into action, restraining Mink while Nim commences a protective prayer. The possession, however, is further provoked, leading Nim to insist on restraining Mink to the bed. As the turmoil subsides, they all exit the room, leaving a bound and volatile Mink behind. In the events that followed, the family decides to bring Mink to Nim's trusted shaman friend. Upon laying his hands on Mink, the shaman makes a chilling revelation. Mink is a vessel for hundreds of evil spirits. As the truth unravels, it emerges that the ancestors of Mink's family were responsible for the massacre of countless people. And a dying victim's curse led to the haunting of Mink by evil spirits. Determined to free Mink from this possession, the family and the shaman prepare to conduct an exorcism. To closely monitor the proceedings, the crew installs night vision cameras around the house. In the days leading up to the exorcism, the spirits tormenting Mink begin to act out more violently. Initially, Mink's possessed state leads her to create havoc in the house. However, the situation progressively worsens, climaxing in Mink gruesomely boiling their family dog alive and consuming it. The crew records the horrifying events and shares the footage with the family. On the footage, they watch a disturbing scene. Mink abducts Manet's infant son. In a state of panic, Manet rushes to the house, finding his infant's bed empty. Fearful of what Mink could do, they immediately initiate a desperate search in the fields. After a few agonizing minutes, Manet locates his son lying unharmed on the ground. Suddenly, they spot Mink observing them nearby, an evil glance in her eyes. In a swift, threatening move, Mink lunges at them with a knife. The weapon finds a target. It pierces Manet's hand as he lays underneath Mink. Quickly, they pull Mink off and confine her to her room. On the eve of the ritual, a tragic event transpires. Noi finds Nim unconscious, lifeless in her bed. Her sudden death shocks everyone, leaving them clueless about the cause. Despite the loss, the day of the ritual finally arrives and the shaman proceeds with the necessary preparations. His fellows surround the building, the same place where Mink was found after her disappearance, with sacred artifacts. The shaman devises a plan to transfer the evil spirits from Mink to Noi, perform an exorcism, and then trap the expelled spirits in a sealed jar. With a blindfold covering her eyes, the shaman guides Noi to the abandoned building. Once in place, he initiates the ritual. As his prayers echo in the space, blood begins to flow from Noi's mouth and between her legs. The shaman quickly removes the blindfold as she kneels over, expelling the evil spirits into the jar. The intense process drains her, causing her to lose consciousness promptly. At the same time, a group stays behind with Mink at home, following the shaman's explicit instructions to guard her room without opening it until the exorcism is completed. However, in a sudden misguided action, Manet's wife rips off the holy spell that has been keeping Mink confined to her room. This abrupt interruption causes the ongoing ritual to fail, releasing the full force of the trapped spirit and leading to the shaman's fatal fall while clutching the sealed jar. Overcome with panic, the wife barges into Mink's room, only to be met with a lethal stab to her neck by the now powerful Mink. Simultaneously, the lights at the building flicker and die, casting the surroundings into darkness. The on-site crew quickly adapts by using their camera flash to film, their horror mounting as they witness the shaman's assistants falling into possession. Emitting animalistic growls, the newly possessed individuals lunge at the crew, tearing into their flesh in a gruesome display. With the confines of the building, Noi regains consciousness, making a startling claim that she's been taken over by the Bayan god. However, it becomes clear that she's under the control of the powerful evil spirit, not the sacred god. The building descends into a madhouse as violent altercations and killings ensue, turning it into a scene of a rampant chaos and bloodbath. In a state taken over by the spirits, Noi gently lays her hand on Mink's head. She begins to whisper a heartfelt prayer. However, Mink, controlled by the evil within her, reacts abruptly and violently. She seizes Noi by the throat, cutting off her desperate prayers mid-sentence. In a terrifying display, Mink soaks Noi in gasoline. Despite Noi's pleas for mercy, Mink ignites the fuel, setting her ablaze, making a horrifying climax to her tormented journey. The film concludes with a flashback scene featuring Nim, clearly shaken and overwhelmed by the harrowing chain of events. Nim struggles with a crisis of faith. This emotional turmoil not only provides an insight into Nim's personal struggle, but also signals a broader crisis of faith within the family. Their fading trust in the Bayan god seems to have left them open to the harmful control of the angry spirits tied to their family's curse. The chilling end paints a haunting picture of a once devoted family, now left vulnerable in the face of the evil spirits. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching.